Who would have thought that a peaceful holiday and celebrative season in Japan would be rocked by the deadliest single aircraft accident in Japanese and aviation history? This is the story of the ill-fated Japan Airlines Flight 123, which in 2025 turns 40. When residents near Tokyo's Haneda International Airport and Itami International Airport in Osaka began to suffer noise pollution, the government regulated both airports' operating hours, closing them at 10:30 p.m. before reopening at the hour of 6 the next day. But there lay another problem. How can large numbers of passengers travel within Japan in just a day? The nation's two airlines, Japan Airlines and All Nippon Airways, solved this by using 747s on domestic routes. In response to the rise in domestic air travel in Japan and the nation's demand for higher passenger numbers to adhere to Haneda and Itami's reduced operating hours, Boeing created what is known as the Boeing 747 SR. This is a short range variant of the 747, having a lower fuel capacity and greater payload. In these variants, there is an added strong body and landing gear structure to accommodate the additional stresses accumulated from a higher number of takeoffs and landings. These models boast an all economy class configuration with a small number of premium economy seats. The first 747 SR was rolled out on the 3rd of August 1973 and took its first flight on August 31 the same year. Following FAA certification and the first delivery on September 26, 1973, the 747 SR entered service with JAL, the type's sole customer, on October 7, 1973. It operated with Pratt& and Whitney JT90 engines. 5 years later, an improved version, known as the 747 BSR, made its debut. It had increased takeoff weight capability and new structural modifications. The BSR variant took its first flight on November 3, 1978, with the first delivery to All Nippon Airways or ANA on December 21 the same year. Though primarily used on Japanese domestic routes, these types were in some cases used for Hawaii routes, primarily due to the high passenger demand for flights between Japan and Hawaii, particularly during peak seasons, maximizing revenue and efficiency. Juliet Alpha 8119 is just one of many SR 747s produced for Japan Airlines. Built and delivered in 1974, the plane was involved in two accidents. The first of the two incidents happened on June 2, 1978. Juliet Alpha 8119 was operating as JAL Flight 115 on the Haneda Itami route when the plane bounced heavily on landing while carrying out an instrumental approach to runway 32L at Itami International Airport. With the pilot excessively flaring the aircraft on the second touchdown, a severe tail strike happened, cracking open the aft pressure bulkhead. 23 injuries were reported in this accident. When the tail strike was repaired by Boeing and JAL technicians, they made a fatal mistake. Boeing specified that the repair required one continuous splice plate with 3 rows of rivets, but JAL's technicians and some from Boeing did a repair that did not conform to Boeing's approved repair methods. Rather, they used 2 splice plates parallel to the stress crack, one with 2 rows of rivets and the other one with only 1 row. Cutting the plate in this manner negated the effectiveness of one of the rows of rivets, reducing the part's resistance to fatigue cracking to about 70% of that of the correct repair. Following the repair, The aircraft accumulated 8,830 flight hours. J8119 would be once more involved in yet a second incident on 19 August 1982. While under the control of the first officer, the plane suffered a runway strike of the number 4 engine on landing at Chitose Air Base in poor visibility. This was repaired successfully and the aircraft again returned to service. But this incident did not contribute to Flight 123's doom. And now we go to the fateful day. August 12, 1985. It was the Obon season, a Japanese festive holiday honoring the spirits of ancestors. Many return to their ancestral hometowns or places of origin to be reunited with families and tend to the grave of their departed loved ones. Everywhere around, the transportation and hospitality sectors have a heavy workload due to the surge of travelers. Tokyo's two airports, Haneda and Narita, become crowded as usual, with many attempting to catch flights. Meanwhile, in Haneda, which is now about in its seventh year of being a domestic airport, one of the many flights leaving on this day is Japan Airlines Flight 123, destination Osaka Itami International Airport. The plane is Juliet Alpha Beats 119. For the airline, this is an often traveled route, taking only nearly an hour. Prior to the incident, the plane had just finished a domestic flight from Fukuoka Airport at 5:12 p.m., wherein a new trio of pilots boarded. All three are veterans, and the Haneda Itami route was very much known to them. 49-year-old Masami Takahama is one of JL's most experienced captains, with a total of 12,424 flight hours, of which 4,842 hours were accrued in 747s logged into him. He will be the co-pilot today and will be evaluating 39-year-old International Flight's first officer, Yutaka Sasaki, 10 years younger than him and also highly experienced. He has about 4,000 plus hours, half of which were accrued in 747s. For the last 6 years, Sasaki has been experienced flying 747s as a first officer. Today, he is the pilot in command and will be seated in the left hand seat, usually reserved for captains. Sasaki is undergoing a training course for the promotion to the rank of captain, and Flight 123 is one of his final training and evaluation flights. The third member of this crew is flight engineer Hiroshi Fukuda, 9,831 flight hours, including about 3,846 hours in 747s. This veteran pilot has been on duty the whole day, and Flight 123 is his third flight for both this day and the 747. 487 Japanese passengers take this flight to journey home. One of them is the off duty recently married 26-year-old Japan Airlines flight attendant Yumi Ochiai, who is visiting her family in her native hometown. Her childhood dream of traveling the world landed her this job, of which she's very passionate about. Sometime prior to the crash, she was promoted to assistant purser. Ochiai is deadheading practice of carrying free of charge a transport company's own staff on a normal passenger trip so that they can be in the right place to begin their duties. And true enough, she will be flying back to Tokyo after the holidays as a working crew member. The first Asian artist to top the Billboard charts, singer-actor Kyu Sakamoto, known for his hit song Sukiyaki, is also aboard. Of the 21 non-Japanese on this flight, 6 are Americans, of which half were of Korean descent. Within the age range of Ochiai is 26-year-old California native Ward Wilson Wallach. A graduate of California State University, he is on a scholarship program for his postgraduate studies in one of the Japanese Ivy League schools, while also working as an English instructor for Japan Airlines employees and crew. London born IT worker and musician Kimball Matthews is the lone British passenger, accompanied by his fiancée Masako Nishiguchi. Both plan to get married next year. After an hour, Flight 123 departs Haneda at 6:12 p.m. as the sun begins to fade. Bystander captures the last ever video of Juliet Alpha 8119 taking off that fateful day. Flight 123 goes south over Tokyo Bay and then turns west to fly over the coast before making another right turn for Osaka. As mentioned, the flight only takes nearly an hour and the crew must be efficient and quick. The first minutes of the flight go smoothly without incident and everything proceeds as normal. Flight 123 is already 7,000 feet where the air thins. While cruising over Sagami Bay, pilots receive a call on the intercom from a flight attendant who informs them of a passenger requesting to use the lavatories before the seatbelt sign is turned off. This was not out of the ordinary, and they just approved this request, seeing it as a norm on routine days. But as the flight attendant gives the all clear and offers to escort the passenger, two explosions rock the plane, and pressurized air is sucked out as the lavatory ceiling caves in. The force of the pressurized air being sucked out blew off the plane's tail, causing a loss of hydraulic fluid. This was a result of the incorrect repair done to the plane's bulkhead in 1978. Inside the cockpit, the pilots feel the force and sense something is amiss. Not long after, an alarm in the flight engineer station activates with a red light indicating a problem at the R5, which they believe to be a blowout door. They dial 7700 on the panel to alert the ATC on their predicament. Tokyo Air Traffic Control is set off on this matter and they take action. When the Tokyo ATC contacted the aircraft again, the pilots declare an emergency. And when the controller asks what is the nature of their emergency, none of the crew respond. They had made the mistake of not donning their oxygen masks, thus, their thinking and comprehension becomes twisted due to the lack of oxygen in the blood and brain. This is called hypoxia. Tokyo repeated the direction to descend and turned to a 90-degree heading to Oshima, and only then did the captain report that the aircraft had become uncontrollable. Captain Takahama declined Tokyo Control's suggestion to divert to Nagoya Airport, 72 nautical miles away, instead preferring to land at Haneda, knowing that it had facilities to handle the Boeing 747. Due to the loss of hydraulic fluid controls, the plane flew in a rather unorthodox manner, experiencing phenomena such as phugoid oscillations. Pick up speed before it increases the lift, bringing the nose up, only to slow and dive down once more. Combined with its changing altitude, the plane also undergoes a Dutch roll, simultaneously yawing right and banking left before yawing back left and banking right. Despite the complete loss of control, the pilots continued to turn the control wheel, pull on the control column, and move the rudder pedals up until the moment of the crash. They also began efforts to establish control using differential engine thrust as the aircraft slowly wandered back towards Haneda. Their efforts had limited success, and it was only after the landing gears were deployed that the plane made a substantial descent. Lowering the gear helped slow down the plane and create drag, but this drag was too powerful, and with that, the pilots decided to try using throttle control to steer the plane. Meanwhile, at a United States military installation located in the Tama area or western Tokyo part, Yokota Air Base, the American controllers and navigators stationed there overheard the distress calls between the plane and Tokyo ATC, being that Japan Airlines 123's erratic flight path had placed it within range there. As standard procedure, they came on frequency, maintained contact with the airline and Japanese controllers, and offered their runway for landing. The base also prepares a search and rescue mission.
123, car 07 right hard. If you hear me, attempt contact 1center.4. Order for 360 Japan Air 123, Japan Air 123, could approach on guard. If you hear me, clock 5423.
Around 6:50 p.m., a photographer on the ground in Okutama captured a photograph of the ill-fated 747, which showed that the vertical stabilizer was missing. The plane's erratic flying brings it yet again to a mountainous region northwest of Tokyo, where its erratic moves continued. To avoid the mountains, the crew made a decision to bring the engines to max power. But without control and hydraulic loss, they tried intermittent power strategy, full thrust and pause. But this reignited the same violent oscillations the plane suffered earlier, sending all aboard into a frightful experience of sharp climbs and dives. Pilots opted for flaps down, which will help bring more controlled speed. But this did little, as there was an uneven thrust and the flaps did not symmetrically align. The combined problem sent the plane veering right into a steep dive. Simultaneously, passengers began writing farewell letters in wheels. A minute later, the right wing and engine clipped a ridge of Mount Mikuni. This collision brought about the loss of engine thrust. With that, the plane flips and slams into the neighboring Mount Takamagahara with a fiery explosion. In a strike of luck, the region was experiencing rain and wet conditions spared the body of the aircraft from further ignition. Remarkably, a significant number of people survived. News of the crash spreads throughout Japan, which alerts Yokota personnel. US fighter planes scrambled to find the missing JL 123, wherein a C 130 was able to spot the wreckage, reporting the discovery to Yokota and Atsugi Naval Base, the latter of which also offered its runways to the crippled flight. American Marine and Navy personnel took their helicopters to the crash site to help retrieve survivors, but these were aborted at the call of the Japan Self-Defense Forces, who were reluctant to accept assistance and insisted that it was a Japanese affair. As night falls, the Japanese Air Self-Defense Forces sent helicopters to the crash site. There, the pilots radioed in a grim message: no sign of survivors. By the late hours, JSDF soldiers headed to the area and set up camp at a nearby site, deciding to do the work the next day, reasoning of harsh weather conditions and mountainous environment, as well as the darkness of the night. The sun rises, and as Japan is reeling in on the incident, the JSDF begin their climb and hike to the crash site. They were met by an unexpected revelation as they reached the wreckage. Four survivors were found: the dead-heading Yumi Ochiai, a 12-year-old girl and her mother, and two more females. However, the rest of the occupants were dead. According to autopsies conducted by doctors, the injuries suggested that the people had survived the crash only to die from shock, overnight exposure in harsh mountain conditions, or injuries that, if tended to earlier, would not have been fatal. Yumi Ochiai's injuries were not life-threatening. The days that followed, correspondents came to her hospital room and she gave a harrowing account of the incident and the moments post-crash that very night. Her statements concurred with the doctors' autopsies on the passengers. There was harsh panting and gasping. I heard crying and moaning from the surviving passengers and crew members. One of them was a boy, likely about elementary school age, and his mother, both crying out for one another. He said, "Mom, where are you?" And she responded, "Come quickly, my child." To which he replied, "Okay, I will be hanging on." As night fell, there were bright lights and the sounds of helicopter rotors, wherein we tried to scream for help, but it left. It was here where the cries and moans died slowly, and all went silent. When investigators began assessing and solving the case using the black box and flight data recorder, they mistakenly thought a door broke off. However, it was found out that all doors were in proper working condition with no fault. The same photographer that took the photo of the plane 6 minutes before the crash came forward to them and presented his developed photo. With the help of IT experts, they found the missing piece of the puzzle. At the very same time this discovery was made, a fishing ship sailing across Sagami Bay radioed the Japanese Coast Guard on their discovery of the plane's missing tail fin floating on the waters at the very same location the explosion happened. Soon, records were checked and they found the cause. The improper repair from the 1978 incident led to the disaster. This flight was the 12,319th flight made since the repairs. With that, the puzzle was pieced together and the results were finalized. The faulty repair will fail after 11,000 pressurization cycles, and Juliet Alpha 8119 accomplished 12,318 successful flights from the time the faulty repair was made to when the crash happened. And with the plane's tail blown off, hydraulic fluid, which helped control the elevator, rudder, and wing controls, was lost. Japan Airlines paid around 780 million yen to the victims and their kin, while still suffering losses. In 1986, fewer people flew it. The aftermath began with the resignation of Yasumoto Takagi as JL's president, and it ended with the suicides of two maintenance workers. The head, Hiro Otominaga, and his fellow engineer, Susumu Tajima, the latter of who inspected the plane and cleared it as airworthy. In the Japanese culture, forms of apology for huge issues or mistakes are not only by words of mouth or written statements, they are accompanied by resignations or suicides. In compliance with standard procedures, Japan Airlines retired flight number 123 for their Haneda Itami routes, changing it to flight 121 and flight 127 on September 1, 1985. The Boeing 747 SRs were still used on the same route, operating with the new flight numbers in the years following the crash until their retirement in 2006, with modern wide-body aircraft such as the Boeing 747-400D and twin-engine wide-bodies such as the 767 and 777, replacing them during the 1990s and early 2000s. Boeing 747 operations at JL ended in 2011 when the last 747-400 was returned to the lessor as part of the airline's restructuring efforts, with the aforementioned twin-engine planes, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, and Airbus A350 operating these routes today. Yumi Ochiai returned to her flying career after her recovery, while the daughter of Masami Takahama, Yoko, then a high school student during the incident, became a flight attendant for Japan Airlines after completing her university degree, choosing the career in honor of her father. Yutaka Sasaki's nephew, Masato, later became a physician. In 2006, exactly 21 years after the crash, Japan Airlines opened the Safety Promotion Center as part of its airline museum to educate the masses on airline safety. Pieces of wreckage are on display in this museum alongside farewell notes written by passengers. The museum is located in Haneda Airport. The 747 disaster resulting from maintenance mistake did not end here. 17 years after the crash, China Airlines Flight 611 experienced an in-flight breakup over the Taiwan Strait in 2002 due to metal fatigue resulting from a faulty repair in 1980. Like JL123, China Airlines 611 also suffered a tail strike upon landing in Kai Tak from Saudi Arabia. In a similar manner, repairs were carried out incorrectly. Both JL123 and China Airlines 611 are the deadliest crashes in their respective countries.